Can't get away from it.
Yeah, please. Some
Ready?
people have it more than 2 days, there's another thing.
Y'all ready? Y'all would please stand as we say the pledge and have a invocation. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Father, Lord, we thank you for this day and all your many blessings. We thank you for each one who's here. We ask now as we conduct your business that you would help us, Lord, to do so wisely and in the best interest of our citizens. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Okay, we do not have minutes to approve. We'll get that next month.
Chairman, may I step in for a moment? The clerk has asked if each member of the Planning Commission could please make sure that your microphone is turned on, and you can tell if it's on if the button is up.
Okay, everybody got your microphone on? In the way of announcements, real quick, just want to remind everybody, if you have not already, please silence your phones. Try to limit interruptions as much as possible. Also, we will have a 9 o'clock time certain close to the meeting, so if your item has not been heard prior to 9 o'clock, it'll be moved to the next month's agenda. And also want to introduce everybody to Michael Barker, the newest member of the Planning Commission. Welcome aboard.
Thanks, sir.
Hope you have as much fun as we do. Sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah.
We also need to wish a certain young man happy birthday.
Who?
I'm not naming no names, Mr. Chairman, but it's Mr. Chairman. Y'all.
Another one down. Another one down.
There you go.
Mr. Carpenter, you got anything?
Sir, I was on the phone with admin. I apologize for being late.
No problem.
I don't know that we have any announcements for today.
About
Continue.
continuances.
We can deal with those right away. We have a request to continue on item number 5, the Alderberry project.
Let me continue to the next meeting.
I'm sorry, that one is tabled for this meeting.
Okay.
We need them.
Just taking one at a time. That was a request to table.
Yes, sir.
Commissioners?
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Did you get those, Karen? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
We have a request to continue to March 8th, here in this location at 5 p.m. for item number 8, which is the topsoil build-out agreement.
Commissioners?
So moved.
We have a motion.
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And Mr. Chairman, we have a request to continue to March 8th for the Bay Shore Townhome project, which is item number 10 on our agenda.
Motion to continue.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Ready to move into our legislative items?
Let's get it done.
The first item is the Thompson Small Scale Amendment. This is a request to approve by ordinance. It's been reviewed by Renee Bradley, and I'll ask her to introduce his project.
Good evening. Renee Bradley for Walton County Planning Department. This is a request approved by ordinance project number LUM 17-00002. It's a small-scale amendment application submitted by Clark Partington on behalf of Terramore Development, LLC, requesting approval to change the land use from general agricultural to general commercial on 1.89 acres. This project is located on the east side of State Road 83. Staff has no pending comments on this project. We feel that the compatibility analysis has met the requirements. The only issues that we had at all in the beginning of this project was water and sewer. Water and sewer is available according to the letter that we received on January 2nd, 2018. That's really all staff has for the board. We'd be glad to answer any questions for you.
So was it City of Keniac Water and Sewer?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Anybody have any questions to staff?
There's not any concurrence in this.
Excuse me?
There's no concurrence in this kind of thing, is it? Okay.
The concurrency will come, sir, at the time of their project. They're going to be requesting to do a Dollar General store there, and at that time we'll review the concurrency in detail. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Renee. Mr. Davis?
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Mark Davis. I'm representing Terra Moore. If you have any questions, I think Renee has laid out the request for the small-scale amendment pretty carefully. I have with me some representatives from Terra Moore and the author of the compatibility study, but if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them.
Nice to see you.
Say it again.
I said it's nice to see you on that side.
Well, it's good to be back here.
It's nice to see you back here.
Good to be here.
I'm glad to see something happening actually on the north end of the county.
That's right.
Even though it is the Dollar General. We don't mind those up there.
Hey, my neighbors want to know if we're going to start turning dirt tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay.
No questions, then. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Commissioners? Wait a minute. I have one person who signed up to speak, but I cannot read this name. Do you know who you are? Okay.
Cool.
Joy Bowman, B-O-W-M-A-N. Can you tell me exactly how it is that you can click on a piece of property and change it from agricultural to non-agricultural? Like, how does that actually work? Is it like the property appraiser gets on the computer in the middle of the night and just clicks and changes the word from agricultural to non-AGAC? I'm also curious exactly how much agricultural land has been declassified to non-agricultural. Does anybody know that either? Pretty much all of it, considering that everything around here was agricultural timberland. I was just wondering about how that actually works, that somebody can just go on the computer and click around and change federal agricultural timberland to non-AGAC.
Don't know.
Okay. Since we're talking about agriculture and reclassifications from agriculture to non-agricultural, I'd like to read you a clip from the court notes of Atkinson versus St. Joe Paper Company from 1974. This is how Seaside was built, that the property appraiser of Walton County in 1974 declassified the sand from agricultural to non-agricultural because pine trees weren't growing on it. So St. Joe Paper Company actually sued the property appraiser of Walton County. Deputy, what is the sheriff's name? It's Atkinson, right? What's his first name? Sheriff. Okay, well, I can't remember it right now, but it's the exact same name as the property appraiser of 1974. So anyways, this is the motion on clarification from Booth and Shaw. By motion for clarification, appellant calls to attention the fact that our opinion overlooks ruling upon the property appraiser's denial of agricultural classification and reclassification of lands other than the waterfront lands and lakefront lands. Such lands were denied agricultural classification and were reclassified by the property appraiser as raw acreage and raw acreage highway. Such lands are timberlands, which lie on the waterfront and the access roads. These lands fall in the same category as lakefront, which was ruled erroneously classified non-agricultural. The property appraiser erred in classifying them as raw acreage and raw acreage as non-agricultural. The motion for classification is granted, and in our opinion is modified accordingly. That's some legal jargon. Anyways, it's been going on, this reclassification from agricultural to non-agricultural, and it is one of the huge ways that our land is being destroyed. So now this piece of property is on the north side of the Choctawhatchee, so I can't claim it as part of my Choctaw heritage, but if you want to sink your land, go ahead. Thanks, guys.
Is there anybody else who wishes to speak on this item? Okay, so seeing none, we'll close public comments. Commissioners?
Motion to approve.
Second?
Got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That brings us to item number 2, the Williams Storage Facility Small Scale Amendment. This is a request to approve by ordinance, and this has been reviewed by Kelly Freimeyer, and I'll ask her to introduce this project.
Hello. This is a small-scale amendment application submitted by Avcon, Inc. on behalf of Luke Williams, requesting approval to amend the future land use designation on approximately 4.1 acres of coastal center to coastal center mixed use. This project is located on the south side of Forest Shore Drive, west of New Elba Street and East Shore Drive. This current property currently has a mini warehouse use on it. There's about 18,300 square foot, and that warehouse is not currently a supported use with the Coastal Center. So amending it to the designation of Coastal Center mixed use will allow that to be in compliance, and additionally improvements to the property that the applicant would like to pursue afterward.
Okay.
How long has this building been here?
I'm not exactly sure. So.
Good question. Good question.
Sorry, I'm Tanya Nation with Akron. The buildings have been there since I believe it was the mid-'80s.
Okay, mid-'80s.
Why wasn't it done back then? Just the oversight?
Well,
I don't know.
is this for staff or for the?
Well, I was asking staff, but we'll wait till, I'll wait till that.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, why wasn't this done previously? It's at the request of the applicant. It's a non-conforming use. It was grandfathered in. They're looking to expand that particular use, and as a non-conforming use, they're prevented from doing that in the present land use category. This change would allow them to expand that facility and bring it into conformance with the present code.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
My name is Tanya Nation with Avcon, and I've also got Luke Williams here as well, and we're here to just answer any questions that you may have.
So you're looking to expand the storage facility, is that what you're trying to do?
Yes, sir. They're considering doing a self-storage, so it would be an all-enclosed building. The building plans have yet to be developed, and we would be required to go through the full development order process.
Okay.
Would this be a climate-controlled storage facility?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you. We had nobody who signed up to speak. Is there anyone who wishes to address this item? Then we'll close public comments. Commissioners?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And that is the last item of legislative, rest or quasi-judicial. So you want to swear everybody in?
All right, anybody who anticipates testifying on any of the following items, please rise, raise your right hand so I can swear you in. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in these proceedings will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Okay, and when you come up to the podium, please give your name and spell your last name for the record and indicate whether you've been sworn in. And members of the Planning Commission, have any of you had any communications that would prevent you from rendering a fair and impartial decision on any of these matters?
No.
No.
I feel like you're asking me directly sometimes.
Matt, just before we get started, just real quick, just want to remind everybody, we have a lot of stuff on the agenda from the looks of things, a lot of people wanting to talk tonight, which is a good thing. But I would request that if you can, try to limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. That way, hopefully, we can get through the whole agenda and give everybody the opportunity to speak if they so wish. Go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Matt Carpenter for the Planning Department. Yes, I've been sworn. First item we have under our QJ agenda this evening is the Rolling Dunes development application, request approved by final order. This project has been reviewed by Bob Morante, and I'll ask him to introduce it.
Evening. This is a major development order application submitted by JP Engineering LLC on behalf of Joseph Cohen, requesting approval for a mixed-use development including retail, restaurant, residential. The project is located on the northeastern corner of South County Highway 83 and West County Highway 30A on one acre, plus or minus, with future land use of village mixed use. The applicant, this is the second reiteration of this project. The applicant went for a variance for parking and was not successful, so the applicant went back and redesigned the building so they wouldn't have to have that variance for the parking. Because of the two roads they would each have to have a front. All comments have been addressed. The traditional conditions of approval are in it, and plus there will be a new condition of approval also that the applicant will have to pay their preservation buyout fee of $68,980.36 before the DO would be issued. If there's any questions, I would answer them for you.
This may be more directly addressed to the members of the applicants committee. Is this Joseph Cohen from Miami, Florida? Yes. It is? All right. I represent him directly in all his entities in Walton County, so I am confused.
It's getting to be a habit.
I just fired me.
You'd like that.
Did I understand you correctly that they're not asking for any variances anymore?
No, sir. They went back, redesigned the building to be able to get the parking required for this site without getting the variance that was denied.
Okay.
And it's contingent on these, on the concurrency and what you just said.
It's it's non-concurrent, so they would have a proportionate fair share of $41,800.
Okay.
That would be due before.
Go ahead.
That would be due to be paid.
And you said the preservation buyouts another 68?
$68,980.36. And that number's been verified by the finance department.
Okay. And it shows you have to have 47 parking places, and you're providing 47 parking places. Are those, I guess, they're standard size parking?
Yes, sir. I don't believe that there's any
that's
compact.
a lot of parking spots in an acre to still have a building there.
There is some compact.
There are some compact?
Yes. And
as far as a ratio, is there a requirement that so many be full size and so many be compact, or how does that work?
They meet the ratio per code with compact versus the full size. I can't pull right off the top of my mind the percentage, but they have met all conditions for parking. And also, if you're wondering, one of the things, the applicant can explain it when he comes up, one of the things are they reduced the residential to 1 bedroom.
Okay. All right, these questions may be better for the applicant. So
And if there's no other questions, I'd like to enter my staff report into the record, please.
it's accepted. Anybody have any other questions for staff?
And sir, the applicant is here, the
Okay.
agent is here to answer any of your questions. Thank you.
All right.
Good evening, my name is Tracy Jernigan with JP Engineering, that's spelled Jernigan. We are the agent for the owner. I appreciate the staff. We've worked with them very closely over the last year on this project. I think Bob's done a good job of introducing it. I noticed right away there's going to be a lot of questions, so I'll just briefly discuss the project, and you can ask whatever questions from the technical side that we can answer for you. This is a mixed-use development. There is a retail, a restaurant, and a residential component to it. It is on a very small 1-acre piece of property on the corner of 83 and 30A. That property, originally we were looking at the code and interpreted a 20% reduction in the parking that was allowed by code, but there's double frontage on it, so we ran into some challenges there. That was the reason we made the request for the variance. That was not successful, as Mr. Barani said. It was a 2-3 vote, so we went back, reduced our overall footprint of the building, reduced the overall footprint of the site, down from roughly 10,000 square foot down to about 6,500 square foot. That reduced the required parking and allowed us to increase our provided parking. So we do meet the parking requirements as defined by the Land Development Code. We do have some compact spaces in there which are within the 20%, I believe it is a 20% that you're allowed for compact. We also have some designated parking for the residential. One of the calls that we had from neighbors, concerned about the parking situation, and we know that's a serious situation in South Walton, was where the resident's going to park if they come home and everyone's eating dinner. So we do have designated parking spaces for the residential component. As a part of that parking reduction, we did reduce those residential units down from 2-bedroom to 1-bedroom. Everything just basically scaled down so that we could meet the requirements of the Land Development Code and the intent of the comprehensive plan without any variance. It's taken a while to get to that point, but we've worked very closely with staff. Certainly appreciate their input, their guidance, and their direction in this. And what we have now is a project that we feel meets all those requirements. And I'd be happy to answer any other questions that you might have on that.
So all 6 of these are 1-bedroom condominiums?
That's correct, yes, sir.
And this is across diagonal from the creamery, right?
That's correct. It's on the northwest quadrant, so it's across from Redfish Village and diagonal from the creamery. And that, there are some conditions in there, that preservation that, we have an upland species there that we are preserving, but we are buying a portion of that out just because of the constraints of that size of site. It's 1 acre. Trying to put anything on 1 acre is pretty tough. So that's the reason for what we're buying out that is allowed by the code.
What's the species?
Sand pine scrub and xeric hammock.
So you have 9 spaces. I guess that's what's required for the residential units, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I understand that's what the code requires, but I can see that now because there's not a whole lot of residences that only have 1 car, but that's going to be their problem. So.
And hopefully with it being 1 bedroom.
Right. Well, even if you have a couple living there,
more
more than likely they're going to have 2 cars.
Yes, sir.
So. If you have what kind of restaurant you see putting in there? Just whatever?
I can't answer that, sir.
These will probably wind up being rentals, considering where they're at. Is that fair?
I'm not sure I can answer that. Usually a rental down here is more bedrooms because you got people coming, so I would lean the other way, but I couldn't say definitively if they would be rentals or not.
So that you got 9 parking spaces dedicated to the residential. That leaves 37, 38 for the retail and the restaurant.
Yes, sir.
How many tables will that restaurant?
The parking, we don't know what the tables are. The parking requirements are based on the square footage, and on our site plan, in our site statistics, we have that broken down based on the use. So for the For the restaurant at 2,350 square feet, the parking requirement is 1 space for every 150 square feet, so that's 16 spaces. The retail is broken down there also 5 per 1,000, so that's 22 spaces based on the land development code.
And all the required setbacks are met?
Yes, sir, including all the scenic corridor buffers and everything.
All the buffers.
Anybody else have any questions? I don't have any questions, just that parking is gonna be an issue. I mean, it's just, I know that you meet the code, but I can see a lot of people walking across the street from Redfish Village to go over to your development to eat or to shop, so that's not for us to
Yes,
deal
sir.
with.
There'll be parking there.
Okay, anybody, no other questions? Thank you. We'll go ahead and open up public comments. We have several people who have signed up to speak, and I'll just go through the order that I have here. Bruce Anderson. Oh, that's number 4, I'm sorry. There was nobody signed up. Anybody wish to speak on this?
Corey Bowman, it's already really crowded down there, and we all know that. So I would discourage putting any kind of like multi-use restaurant and living facility there. You know, I'd like to keep it as small as possible, and I hate to see the whole thing turn into a parking lot with no trees. So anyways, I just think it's too crowded to allow such development. Thank you.
Anybody else wish to address this item? See nobody, will close public comments. Commissioners, what's your pleasure?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second, any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioners. The next item on our agenda is item number 4. This is the Hilton Garden Inn application, request to approve by final order. This project has been reviewed by Bob Bronte also, and I will also ask him to introduce.
This is a major development order application submitted by Emerald Coast Associates, Inc. on behalf of Miramar Beach Lodging, LLC, requesting to approve to develop a 111-unit hotel. The project is located from the proposed parcel from the intersection of US Highway 98 and Scenic Gulf Drive, traveling west 0.20 miles. The parcel is on the north side of Scenic Gulf Drive on 2.54 plus or minus acres with future land use of coastal center mixed use. All the comments have been addressed. However, I would like to point out that that Public Works has made a comment on top of Dewberry's comment. There is a representative here from Public Works to answer any questions you may have. All the conditions have been met, and if there's no questions, I'd like to enter the staff report into record and then turn it over to the
Staff report's accepted. Anybody have any questions for staff?
Thank you. I'll turn it over.
Okay.
Mr. Burgess.
Thank you, Bob. Good evening, members of the board. My name is Dean Burgess with Emerald Coast Associates. I'm the agent to the owner and engineer of record for the Hilton Garden Inn project that's before you for consideration tonight. I have read the staff report and concur with staff's recommendation for approval for the project. Briefly, I'll give you an overview of the project. This is located between the Poinciana Plaza and the Beach Walk Center 2 Plaza, which is where the Chick-fil-A is, along Scenic Gulf Drive. That's the undeveloped land that basically sits between those two plazas and south of the Waffle House. So this will fill out that area of development. The property measures approximately 2.54 acres. We're proposing a 111-room hotel building. It will be a Hilton Garden Inn building with a pool amenity and a small restaurant facility in it as well. We meet the conditions of the Land Development Code, and I'm here to answer any questions that the board may have.
You know, this Public Works comment about the easternmost driveway connection, what was that something y'all requested, or how's it set up now?
We originally, in our original site plan, I'm gonna step from the mic a little bit, I'll try to talk loudly. Our original site plan had a second driveway connection to Scenic Golf Drive here.
Can y'all hear him back there?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the proximity of that driveway to the alley for the Beach Walk Center was agreeably too close. So we agreed to remove that access and just provide a small connection over here, which Chance from Public Works suggested. We accommodated that request. We think it makes for a better traffic.
So the only entrance now is the one right there, in the, I guess.
The main entrance to Scenic Golf Drive, yes, there's one entrance located roughly in the center of the property. We do have interconnectivity, obviously wherever possible, to the adjacent plazas here, to the Point Siena Plaza, up here to the Waffle House property, which also has cut through to the Beach Walk Center property, and this will turn out for what I would say probably tertiary vehicles that are just sneaking out there to go on Scenic Golf Drive.
There's actually 4.
1, 2, 3, the 4th here, and we've interconnected to this alley as well.
You may not know the answer to this, but will this building have like where they can have events and functions to host?
For outside
outside use, will there be any, like maybe an association coming down and holding their event there?
There's I believe a small conference room, but my understanding is you have to stay at the hotel. There's not a conference center that is leased out to outside participants.
Okay.
But there is a small conference room for hotel.
So it'll be mainly just for lodging?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's right. You may be aware this was continued last month due to a notice issue that was brought up. That did afford us some time to meet with some of the associations across the street, the Grand Dunes Association and Edgewater. And I think that actually had a positive, gave us an opportunity to work out a lot of their concerns. Briefly, they had concerns over traffic, stormwater, access, and in general, use of the property and intensity of use. And I think we've covered all the issues with the possible exception of access, which some folks from Grand Dunes may come up and discuss access with you.
Now, is the driveway to this project directly across from there?
Excuse me?
This driveway, is it directly across from Grand Dunes?
As configured for this board to review, yes, sir. Our access is configured not directly across, but
pretty close,
very close to directly across. I've got an aerial that shows the configuration. If I can approach. This is Grand Dunes access, and this is ours.
Okay.
They're slightly skewed, but as close to being across from each other as
I think that reduces confusion a little bit. So.
yes, sir. That's our opinion.
How tall is this building proposed?
It is right at the 50-foot mark. It may be 49 3/4 foot, but it's close to the 50-foot.
4 stories?
4 stories, yes, sir.
No parking in the basement? All the
No.
parking's out exterior?
It's all surface parking, yes, sir.
What is the public beach access? How close is it?
Pardon me?
The public beach access, how close is it?
We are actually going to coordinate a shuttle system that the hotel will operate that will take them down to the public beach by Panama Joe's. Okay. There is a public beach down Norwood. We didn't want to overcrowd that, so we have worked out arrangements with the public beach to offer access both through a private shuttle that Hilton will operate as well as 654 limo. We're going to offer that as well. So we feel that'll bring them to an area that has umbrella service. They can, get, lunch and something to drink and so forth, and it's a public beach.
Okay.
Come out the beach there around Majestic Sun, across the road from that, or on further down?
Further down where Panama Joe's is and all the public parking.
Anybody else have questions for the applicant?
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question for Public Works.
Go ahead.
Chance, does this work, this situation out with y'all to satisfactory condition?
Chance Powell, for the record, I have been sworn. Yeah, we met with Dean and some of the group from Grand Dunes and Edgewater about a week ago, I believe it was. But long before that, when I looked at the project, I requested that the easternmost driveway connection be eliminated, cross access to the existing development there on the east side, just simply to help access, manage access on Scenic Gulf Drive. The main connection they're proposing now, I would like to see it lined up exactly across from Grand Dunes. I think that creates the least amount of conflicts. It is the best case scenario for all parties involved.
So it's your recommendation that not be slightly skewed, but it be directly across?
I understand the way they have it now, and it's working great for their side. It's not a great offset to create any major conflicts, but any more than what it is now, the conflicts start increasing.
What's the safest way to do it?
Directly across from each other. That's the best way to do it.
Because there's a lot of traffic here and a lot of foot traffic there.
Yes, sir.
That's a congested area, badly congested already. I know the concurrency or the traffic report said there was space, but when you drive down there, how many feet are we talking for them to move that over to get it exactly?
That'd be a question for Dean, I think.
It's approximately 36 feet. To get center line, the two center lines to line up is approximately 36 feet.
That's a substantial jog.
The driveway itself is probably 30 feet wide.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Grand Dunes driveway is 50 some odd. It's very wide.
Okay.
What prevents you from moving your driveway over?
We could move the driveway over to line up exactly. When we met with Grand Dunes, their concern is they would like the driveway not to be lined up. They'd like to see the driveway actually further west if we could accommodate it. The way it's lined up now, kind of like Chance said, I saw was skewed but still not dangerous. Your line of sight is still, you're still able to see a car coming out of Grand Dunes turning left, and they're able to see one of our cars come out turning left. The quick answer is we could line them up exactly, but in working with Grand Dunes, if the board sees fit, we'd like to keep it where it is.
Well, why couldn't you move it further to the west then and accommodate them?
If you move it further to the west, like Chance said, we start getting further and further skewed.
Gets more dangerous.
I think, just my personal opinion, it's just, in that area, as congested as it is, safety to me is the most important thing, because you've got a tremendous amount of traffic there. Both vehicular, bicycles, motorcycles, walkers, you name it. But we can deal with that.
You got two major shopping centers right there.
You got a lot of people moving around, and the offset just creates a problem with people see coming in and going in and coming out. So
there's a bank on that one to the far north, or the left-hand corner up. There's a bank, isn't there?
No, actually, to the west is where the old bank was. Are you still on front? No, it's behind it. Is it? Okay. The area. All right. Yeah, this was formerly Trustmark Bank. It's now owned by the church across the street.
Okay. That's a huge church as well.
It is.
Okay. Well, I'm sure we're gonna hear from somebody from Grand Dunes about the driveway, so. That's my concern, is just that alignment and the safety issue.
So for the record, Public Works would prefer it.
Correct. Any more
Okay.
questions?
Thank you, James.
Thank you.
Commissioners, any other questions before we open up public? Okay, we'll open up public comments. I'm just gonna go through the list here. Bruce Anderson.
Good evening. My name is Bruce Anderson. I'm a local attorney, Bruce B. Anderson Law, located in Grand Boulevard. You have to excuse me, I'm fighting the cold like a lot of people these days. I have been asked to appear on behalf of Grand Dunes 1 and 2, the multi-tower condominiums across the street. I think it's 98 and 97 units in each of the condominiums. As you've indicated, there's one entrance and exit to that facility. The matter was previously set last month, and I was the culprit, I guess, that objected to it because there was some issues with appropriate notice. None of the Grand Dunes owners in Grand Dunes 1 acquired notice. We were able to resolve that, and as Mr. Burgess indicated, that time did allow us the opportunity to get together with representatives of Grand Dunes 1, Grand Dunes 2. Ms. Harris from Edgewater, if you can visualize a property, Grand Dunes is across the street. Edgewater is the next adjoining property to the west side on the beach side. We met with the developer to discuss our concerns about the driveways being almost across from each other. The new drive is going to be a little further to the west, and the concern that the Grand Dunes owners have is safety, traffic, access to emergency vehicles, pedestrian traffic crossing their owners and others going over to the mall and the like. The Grand Dune owners think that the present location is simply not in their interest and is not in the best interest of the public at large. If any of you have been down in that area in the evening, summertime mostly, we can't hardly get out of that property going east to get to the light right at the outlet mall. And it's difficult to get out to go west. And what we're going to be doing now is competing with the 111 unit motel across the street, and they're going to be trying to gain access from their main exit or entranceway onto the same area. There were discussions that we had, and I thought quite productive discussions with the developer, who has been most gracious and been very cooperative to accommodate us as best he can and still get this project approved. We're not trying to scrap the project. We want to be good neighbors. I think it's a good development. They've satisfied us as to the issues with the storm drainage, the signage, and really it's this exit way and entrance way that has created the only issue. There were discussions between the Grand Dunes personnel, the developer, and the county personnel about the possibility of moving that main entranceway to the east, in line now with where the original one was, right behind the Skipper's Seafood retail outlet. And the developer was agreeable to that, but apparently the franchisor, Hilton, was not interested in trying to have access at that site, and they nixed that. There were then discussions about the possibility of moving it another 35 foot to the west, which would make it a total of roughly 70 foot from the Grand Dunes entrance on the center line. And my understanding, I didn't participate in the meeting with the county personnel, including the traffic engineer, was that the 35 foot really didn't get you much. So there was a discussion about, well, let's move it, and what would happen if we moved it another 75 foot west? That would be 110 foot from the present midline of our parking entrance, access way in and out. 110 foot from there. It would be 120 foot to the east of the entrance to Edgewater, where Miss Suzanne Harris's property is. which seemed to us to be a good compromise to move it over. Our drivers are not faced with fighting the traffic right across the street from them. It would allow the Hilton patrons to be able to get on that road and still have a chance to leave space between the drive for emergency vehicles to get in and out as need be. Much better than if you're right across the street and people are getting frustrated and they're trying to pull out and fight for space for every spot that you can get out. And basically that's what we've asked for. The developer appears to have no objection to moving that to where we've asked for. It's still 100 foot from the access road of the church on the north, and it would be a better situation, would satisfy our owners, and we frankly believe that it would be the safest thing to do. Now, there's been some suggestions that the safest way is straight across the way. Well, you know, we've seen no opinions, basis for opinion, traffic studies, anything that in fact reflects that that's the better place. And we simply know in use of the property that trying to get out of that space is bad enough now, almost impossible at certain times. And it would be much more accommodating to us, especially where the developer has no objection to moving it down 110 foot. Seems to be a good compromise, and we could recommend that, would be pleased to have that done, or certainly somewhere between the current 35 foot and the 110 foot, whatever would be acceptable to the county personnel and the like. I don't think the developer has a problem with any of those distances. They can accommodate, or so we've been told. So that's our request.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Could we ask those two gentlemen to comment on that directly?
At the end, let's get through these,
Okay.
and if you would.
Hold that thought.
Yeah, come back to it. Jen Sullivan?
Good evening, Commissioners. I represent Edgewater. A couple things. The last thing I think that, and that's Sullivan, I think the last thing that Mr. Anderson referenced to was that it was a compromise. I can tell you this is not the opportunity or a good time to be compromising on safety. You've heard from both the county engineer today, and you've heard here tonight from the developer's engineer that the safest way for this access point is to be placed directly across from the Grand Dunes entrance. Chairman, if you would give me the opportunity, I would like to ask the engineers questions directly. Otherwise, if it's your preference, I can ask them directly to you. But there's my main question coming here tonight really was, what's the safest? And it sounds like the engineers have already answered that. And then I wanted to follow up with the meeting that occurred, I think, a week or so ago, in which the Grand Dunes and the developer met to talk about their concerns. And my understanding from that meeting was different than Mr. Anderson's as reflected here tonight. And so I would like the opportunity to ask the engineers what their understanding was of why Grand Dunes wanted it moved. I don't think it has to do with safety. I think it has to do, quite frankly, with aesthetics. And I think it has to do that they don't want to look at an entrance to a Hilton. But for this county and for these commissioners, I think what's most important is the safety of the residents.
Ms. Sullivan, I agree, and I think those questions will be answered. We're going to have him answer as many as possible at the end. That way we're not going back and forth and save a little bit of time, if that's
Great.
okay.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Suzanne Harris?
First off, I'd like to say, Suzanne Harris for the record, Edgewater, president of Edgewater Beach Homeowners Association. First, I'd like to say that Gary Crest has bent over backwards. I've been on this planning board. I've never seen a developer in the time I've been in Walton County go as far to make the neighbors happy as he has been willing to do and as Dean has been willing to do. They, when I first got this in the mail, before it was mailed out to all my owners, I just put it aside and thought, well, I'll deal with this later. And the next thing I got was a phone call from Dean Burgess saying, I would like to come and meet with you and go over the drawing. And I thought that was absolutely wonderful. Dean did the water runoff design for Grand Dunes, and as you know, I have a retention pond. He worked unbelievably well with us to be sure that Grand Dunes kept all their water off us. And so far, Don Riley in the back, that's been president of the board of Grand Dunes, I'm sure all y'all know, has been one of my best friends forever. I went to the meeting, and Mr. Anderson was not there, but it was Tom Boren, the president of South Building, and the treasurer of the back building. And what was said, I don't really have a problem. I don't care if they build a 6-story motel. Personally, since they've got and a 6-story parking deck behind them, I don't care. I'm glad they're not building a restaurant further back and all their parking in the front so that we get more crowded on Scenic Gulf Drive. But what was said in that meeting was Grand Dunes' concern was it would lower their property values if they came out and looked directly into a motel. And that's what they didn't want. I didn't have a problem with them moving it a little ways. But I had no idea until last night when I talked to the developer, because I had never gotten a plan, that Grand Dunes had asked them to redraw a plan and send it, moving it even further towards me. But my entrance to Edgewater is directly across from Ponciana. My exit driveway is directly across from from what used to be the Trustmark Bank. Trustmark Bank has allowed all the tractor trailer trucks that have to deliver to the shopping center to use that drive entrance and exit rather than Ponciana. So when my guests come out of our drive, at least we're looking directly at the tractor trailer truck you see coming there. And it's not 60 feet to the Ponciana one. Then between Grand Dunes and the county has a driveway that goes in to where all the easements for all the utilities, water, sewer, everything for both of our buildings are. So there's that drive there. Then you get to Grand Dunes Drive. I don't mind them moving it 35 feet if Chance and them tell me that is the safest for this area. Once we had, besides this property going towards Chick-fil-A, you have the new hotel's entrance. Then you have the driveway to the back of the shopping center where Chick-fil-A is. Then you have the driveway to the entrance of the shopping center where Chick-fil-A is. And now I have found out that the t-shirt shop right there is fixing to, they own the vacant lot between Grand Dunes and the t-shirt shop. And they want to double the size of the t-shirt shop and maybe even make it 2 stories. So there you come with another drive. You've also got Regions Bank right on the other side of Grand Dunes with drive-in windows. And nobody can get in and out of Scenic Gulf Drive because you've got Grand Dunes, you've got us, you've got the t-shirt shop, you've got Norwood, you've got all of those right there. So I don't care. I think this developer owns this property. He deserves to get to build anything he wants to on it. I think Dean and Chance met with me. I think they have done a wonderful job. But it is not about what I look at when I drive out of my driveway. It is about what is safe. There are wrecks on that road all the time. Ambulance and fire trucks have a hard time just getting on the road, much less turning in anywhere. And if we have all these jagged entrances and exits, because some of us don't think it's attractive to look across at the motel. I've looked at their landscape plan. I think their landscape plan's great. I think if I want what is the safest, and all of y'all up here have got to remember, if y'all vote to move this thing further down, and there's an accident and somebody's killed, somebody is going to get the minutes from this meeting. And they're going to know that both engineers said it is not safe to move this down. And I just hope that y'all will do what is the safest, because the traffic is worse now than it's ever been. My building is a rental building. Grand Dunes is not rental. Most of their owners aren't even here in the summer, and I don't blame them. It's too hot and too crowded. But my building is 100% full of 176 3 and 4 and 2 and 3 bedroom units, and they are slam full. And they don't come with one car. They come with mama a car, daddy a car, and both teenagers have a car. So we just can't put much more traffic on that road. But I think this motel is going to be an unbelievable asset to our area. And I thank Gary for working it out so that their traffic can go sideways over to Chick-fil-A without getting on Scenic Gulf Drive. It can go sideways by the old Trust Mart to Poinciana, and it can go out the back of 98. And I really want to thank him for putting this parking behind the building and not all in front of the building. And I think it's going to be very attractive.
Thank you. Sam Girth.
My name is Sam Girth. Last name is spelled G as in George, E-R-T-H.
Were you sworn in, sir?
I was sworn in.
Okay.
I'm not against the hotel being there. Having over 1 million Hilton Honors points right now, it'd be kind of convenient to have some of my guests come and stay there, so I'm not against that. I'm not against the hotel having an entrance and an exit. I am a graduate civil engineer, so I looked at the plans, have some knowledge of that kind of thing. My main issue is with the traffic flow. And I guess I have a question that I would like to ask at some time. I'd like to have it addressed whenever it's appropriate. And that is the extent to which a traffic study has been done for that particular area, especially for Scenic Gulf Drive. I live there 365 days a year, except when I'm on vacation to other places. That's my home, my full-time home. I have a very difficult time getting onto Scenic Gulf Drive as it is now. And I'm just wondering if in the considerations, one of those might be, in addition to all the traffic that is there now, I am well aware of the fact that the Poinciana Center has a significant percentage of that center that is not currently under lease. There are signs there. The owner of the property would love to lease that property, love to lease the storefronts that are there, but are not under lease. The main, one of the main tenants there now is the Winn-Dixie Food Store. But on either side of the Winn-Dixie Food Store, there are large areas that are not under lease. I don't know what might go in there. I do know that there would be a great interest for the person who owns that to have those properties occupied. So I'm just wondering if any kind of traffic study has put in the consideration, once those areas are leased, the additional traffic that is going to come to an area that is already, as everyone has said, is congested. And then we hear from Ms. Harris indicating that there are even perhaps more congestion coming aside from what will be coming through the hotel. So my main question is just what does the traffic study indicate needs to be done, especially to Scenic Gulf Drive? Are there any proposals or considerations of ways to make Scenic Gulf Drive in that segment, especially from Highway 98 on down, let's say, past the other hotel that is there, the Embassy Suites, to make that more safe, more able to take the additional traffic that is surely going to come there?
Well, we don't have that information up here.
Where do you live at, sir?
Scenic Gulf.
I live in Grand Dunes, 219 Scenic Gulf Drive, unit number 440.
Yeah, all we know is that they did the study and it meets all the requirements and there's adequate trips available. I mean, we don't have all the information that you're asking for.
Wouldn't that be something that persons in your position might be concerned about?
Well, we're concerned about a lot of things, but we're not in a position to demand that kind of information. We're here to review a project to determine whether it meets the requirements of the code. That's our job.
Well, I live there, and my job is to be concerned about it.
I understand that, and I appreciate that.
So we have no way to find out what kind of traffic study was done? And what
You could contact Mac's office to see, he could probably provide you some information. But as far as this hearing, that's not pertinent. I mean, what we're here to review is this application.
We could just get a letter that it meets.
Yeah,
the
we just get a
traffic
letter that says
concurrency.
it meets requirements.
Okay. Who's that gentleman?
Mr. Carpenter's office.
That'd be me. Yes.
He'll get you a card.
It's right there, Dewberry. That makes traffic concurrently.
Yeah. Okay, Mr. Greg Crossland.
Mr. Chairman, may I switch places with Mr. John Carlin, President, for my time?
Of course you can. But we're just gonna let you switch one time, is that okay?
Yes, sir, that's all I need, one time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for allowing the switch. I'm John Carlin, C-A-R-L-I-N. I am a resident of Shipwatch subdivision. I live at 93 Shipwatch Lane. And I'm the current president of the Shipwatch Homeowners Association. We were not noticed as part of this because we're about 304 feet from the edge of that property. But if you look at all the elevation drawings, you'll see that we're probably the most likely impacted besides the traffic. The traffic, we'll talk to that in a moment. But the biggest challenge for us is we own the parcels, the lake parcels that you'll see adjacent to that property. If I could steal somebody's drawing.
Sure, go ahead.
There's one over here that had the lakes. Anyway, the lake, Summer Lake is well understood by the Planning Commission. They've initiated a number of studies. We own 2 parcels that comprise about half of that 7-acre lake. The other owners are Edgewater Beach Condominiums Phase 1, Huntington by the Sea, Summer Lake Owners Association, and San Tropez Homeowners Association, as well as some individual owners. And based upon the proposal here, we really just oppose further construction in that corridor right now, and because of watershed issues. Our basis is Walton County itself has conducted multiple studies indicating the presence of a major drainage problem in this area. They're your studies, you've conducted them, there are studies, you've conducted them. And the study concludes that Summer Lake, because of past construction approved by the Planning Commission, was left without a natural outfall. It is a landlocked lake. And so the original outfalls were through the land currently known as Huntington by the Sea, and was eliminated when Huntington was built. And that went to the Gulf, directly to the Gulf. And the second outfall was through Edgewater and across Grand Dunes, which was eliminated when Grand Dunes was built. Recent buildings of the Embassy Suites, the Ilario condos, Surf Hut, Destiny Worship Center, and the new annex that's currently under construction have made the problem even worse. So what we're faced with is we get everybody's drainage and no place to put it. No way of moving that water. 7.8 acres at 3 feet, and that lake has spots that are deeper than that. But to use nominal value at 3 is 20 million gallons of water. Okay? So Summer Lake in 2014 experienced a major lake wall breach during a microburst rainstorm that caused $4.2 million worth of damage to Edgewater and over $1 million to damage to our properties. And our pleas to the county for pumping went unheard. And I could go into long levels of detail on that if you'd like. Summer Lake now regularly overfills during periods of rain, because of the off-site water running. And the lake water increases rapidly, floods the entrance road, as well as threatens the lakefront homes, the current lakefront homes. We have 9 homes that are currently under construction, 3 are on the lakefront. So the problem's only going to get worse. Since 2010, Shipwatch at our expense has self-performed multiple emergency drainings of Summer Lake, utilizing at least 1,500 gallon minute pumps at a cost of $20,000 per occurrence. High Summer Lake levels can render the Shipwatch subdivision inaccessible to owners and potentially fire and rescue vehicles. That's how significant this is. And multiple engineering counties by you have been performed on Summer Lake, all of which point the finger and say it's got to be fixed. It's recognized what the cause is, yet no actions have been taken by the county. None. Nothing. Other than $300,000 in studies. Okay, so we are quite unhappy about that. The problem is, if you follow this, look at this, where you can see it right there. There's Summer Lake. That's the lakes there to the left. And it's attached, there's a culvert, a large, about 10-foot culvert that goes underneath the bridge there that attaches all parts of that lake. And that's the lake we're talking about. So, but the problem is that property sheds water to the south and east, south and west. So when you put all that hard surface and we get a frog drowning rain, that water will sheet into Poinciana. It floods the intersection and creates, and Mrs. Harris, I've seen pictures, she took pictures just yesterday. We had that small bout of rain. That was completely flooded. And cars are going through with big, large wakes.
Well, I'll ask the engineer, I'll ask the project engineer to address the water issues.
Right, but as of right now, it's not there.
I understand.
So that's one. So that water, so that's creating a safety issue for the people who live here. And then we also concur with the problem with more accesses onto 98. You can't turn right, you can't turn left coming out of the subdivisions. So we ask that Walton County immediately address the Summer Lake level control issue, and by implementing the recommendations of their own study, or to get a stopgap action plan to include clean out and deepening of Summer Lake, establish a county perform pumping protocol with the necessary DEP permits, and then the county agrees to pump the lake at their expense whenever a threshold value is reached. It's just unacceptable that you would build a building that put existing buildings at risk because of the county's decisions not to follow through on their studies.
Mr. Carlin, I appreciate your passion and your concern, but I will say that this argument is probably better left for the Board of County Commissioners, because that's not what we're here for.
Right, but then you can't.
But we can make recommendations.
Right,
That's what we do.
There's no recommendation. There's nothing right now in your watershed.
I understand that.
You haven't addressed it.
Thank you. This way. Mr. Crossman?
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, may it please the commission, it's Greg Crosslin, C-R-O-S-S-L-I-N. I was sworn in. I'm an owner in Shipwatch. I'm also on the board of directors of Shipwatch. That happens when you own and live here. And my house is on the West Lake. You've already heard some of the issues, but I need you to understand more specifically why this is a safety issue and not just a county issue about the roadway. Every house that was built prior to 2016 that's on the West Lake has experienced significant structural damage as a result of the runoff that's been allowed to occur through no fault of Shipwatch. Because we were outside of 300 feet, we didn't even notice about this, yet our lake will be the reservoir for all the water. The same thing happened with Destiny Worship Center. Also my client was allowed to be built, and Embassy Suites was allowed to be built. No notice, yet all their water runs to us. Every single house received structural damage. Why is that important? One, it's structural. Two, it's uncompensated. No insurance coverage was available because it's a rising water exception, or the deductible was so high it couldn't be met. Second issue of damage, and most of you may not be old enough on the commission to remember when we had the quote-unquote termite house from Hades in Shipwatch that was completely destroyed. It made all the front page news for a while. It sat for 3 years. It was in litigation for 5 years. Every time there's a water event, a flooding event that comes up next to a house, it washes away the termiticide in each house. Mr. Roberts can attest to my work in this area. That creates a toxic exposure issue. Number two, it washes away every bit of termite protection that a home has. If you don't immediately replace it, termites then can infect the house, for which there's no insurance coverage, and there's no coverage by the termite company because of the rising water issue. We have serious termite presence along South 98, that's undoubtable. So that creates safety and dollar hazards to every one of those homes. That's problematic. I do want to clarify a couple of things. The reason there's on Destiny Worship Center, the reason the trucks come down the back of the shopping center, Destiny Worship Center, being a good neighbor, allows a developer to use that. Those trucks cannot turn because the easement that's available to the developer currently is too tight and too small. We are concerned that since there's no easement in place yet, where that traffic's going to go. More importantly, where the water traffic will be diverted, because if it comes down Poinciana, it comes to our lake line. No matter where you allow this driveway to be built, the entrance and exit, that water is going to run towards our area, right across the street, right into us. You have photographs, I'll be happy to supply them, where the street is flooded and the county can or does nothing about it, and we have to get it pumped out because the street is flooded. The last thing, the third thing is when you cover up that last bit of ground that will percolate, and by the way, Mr. Carlin is a nuclear engineer, has many years with the Navy in engineering, so when he talks about water flow, he understands it. It's 19.5 million gallons of water flow affected. That's coming on my property, where I've had damage as a homeowner and a local member here, where we've had serious issues. So whether we plan and like a pretty building or not, it's not my point. We know, we've not been talked to directly by the developer, I guess because we're 4 foot too far away. I do understand there's been very good, cordial conversations, and we're not trying to block, but we're trying to restrict damage to existing structures that do present a safety hazard. We're trying to prevent any further damage to homeowners who are already presently there suffering because prior commissions and boards did not recognize the issue of where this water has to go. And the last issue with regard to the safety issue, because I live in a gated community directly across from this area or on a side angle, the idea of a shuttle, first of all, to me, with all due respect to everyone in this room, is silly. That's a 45-minute run because I live on that road. 45 minutes from that point to Pompano Joe's one way. No one's going to wait on that. They're going to go to the beach. And how are they going to get there? The same way they do now. They cross our fence, waddle through our lake, and come right through either Edgewater or through us. That is a safety issue as well. We've had to call ambulances because people have come across our fence and gotten in trouble. So there's a number of safety issues that may not be as prevalent as the millions of dollars that Edgewater has been concerned with, and the breach and the damage, or the $1 million Shipwatch has had. But every time a homeowner has damage or someone is injured, that's something this commission should consider. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. What's that? John? I can't read the last name. Burns? Yes, sir. You got it. You're up.
Hi, John Burns, B-U-R-N-S. I've been sworn in. I live in Grand Dunes, and I'm one of the people on the board of directors. And I live here full time. And I guess my question was, when you're talking about this traffic study, I understand that if you have a road that is not totally congested, having exits directly across from each other makes sense. I guess my question is, like, when the traffic is backed up all the way to Shipwatch all summer, does that still apply? I mean, is it still a better thing to have them directly opposed to each other? I mean, if we have people, say we're trying to go east, we're trying to turn right, people directly across from us are going to turn left, and the people that have been sitting down by Shipwatch have been waiting 25 minutes to get to the light. So I'm not sure how these studies are done. I mean, I understand how this, with one search situation where, you might have 10 cars going by every 5 minutes, but our situation, I think, is different, and I think that it may be something to think about. My other point is I was not at the meeting with the developer that Ms. Harris was talking about, but I have an extremely hard time believing that the people at Grand Dunes said that their only concern is a decrease in their property values. That site has been an eyesore since I moved here 6 years ago. People park 18-wheel trucks there, and we were actually happy that they were going to build a Hilton Garden Inn rather than another Alvin's Island or some big restaurant. So I'm having a hard time believing that that happened at that meeting. I wasn't there, so I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you. We have nobody else who signed up to speak. Yes, ma'am.
Coy Bowman. Okay, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. Like this traffic study says that, oh, it'll be possible, and it'll just barely be possible. But it's kind of like getting McDonald's French fries. They cook them till they're just legally cooked. They're legally allowed to sell them. They are so much better if they're cooked for about 2 minutes longer. So like the congestion and everything that they're talking about it's like the traffic study says it's just possible, and the parking spaces, it's possible. But just because it's possible and it falls under these rules of building, well, all of those rules were written when the entire neighborhood wasn't already built up as much as it was. And yes, I agree with everything these gentlemen back here said about way too much stuff is going on this little tiny intersection, and it's really, really busy. But what I see going on here is the way that the land is converted, which is there's 4 chunks of property here that are all going to be put into one, which means it'll get its one individual parcel number. So if you look at the 4 existing parcels that this makes up, 2 of them have both qualified and unqualified sales. One of them is all unqualified sales, one of which was like $6 million. The only one that has nothing but qualified sales, and there was only 2, is the property that belonged to the church. So now churches are exempt from this rule of they're not allowed to be built, which is why so many churches are built here, and then the church fails, and then they build a restaurant where the church was, because the church is, for some reason, allowed to cut down timberland to put up a church. So what's happened here is that the church on that corner has sort of like cut off a little corner of its legitimate deed, and it's being paired up with these other illegitimate deeds, one of which probably doesn't have a title to it because it has all unqualified sales. So you see, this is how the property appraiser has been converting all of this timberland into parking lots and hotels, is by chopping up the properties that are unqualified and pairing them with ones that are, and then selling it and turning it into something else. And then when you go on the property appraiser's website next year, all you will be able to find is the trail to the legitimate piece of property, which, by the way, if you click on it, actually says the land is in Okaloosa County, not Walton County. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Harris, go ahead. Real quick, okay? You don't have to run, though.
Well, I know everybody likes to get out of here before you and I did one night at 12 midnight.
Right.
Edgewater has offered to contribute and pay. And we've offered to pay Dean if Dean can work with the county to get a stoplight right there at Poinciana. Because all of our guests, of course, want to walk across that street to go to the grocery store or go to Chick-fil-A because traffic is bad. They're not stupid. But there's 2 things about the water thing. I am willing to pay Dean to help design how to keep. I was in the planning meeting the night I got the call, my $4 million damage.
I was here with you.
And had to get up and go. So Edgewater is very well aware of what water can do. And we want to stop the water. Yesterday, when we had that hard 30-minute rain, I have pictures, and I have an engineer here that I think will want to speak, that's the owner at Edgewater, has lots of pictures. But when a car goes through, and he may not, but when a car goes through and the water's up to the door, they slam on the brake, then the car behind them hydroplanes. And I've shown it to Dean. We're willing to pay Dean. The Grand Dunes property the developer had used to have the swell, just like if you come down Ponciana and you look in the side of Trustmark's right there. It's got a big swell where the water goes, and then it goes under Ponciana and goes on to the lake. When Grand Dunes built, they used this lot that they own for a staging area, and they rented it. And what they did was they took all their cranes across the street and parked them. They put their big office across the street in the trailer, and they took all the dirt where they wanted to build their swimming pool and hauled it across the street to store it, because you can replace brown dirt, but if you throw it away, you got to put white sand in, as Edgewater knows. So they stored it. Well, they couldn't get their trucks and the big cranes and all over there because there was that deep swell where the water from where Chick-fil-A is now went down. So they covered up the swell and stopped the drainage right there. And it's never been dug back out, and the swell's never been put back. And I've talked to Dean about that, and Edgewater's willing to pay Dean to work on a study because it does come down. You can stand in my driveway, Jones has. Ponciana runs straight down, and it's directly across from me. It pours down there, and it comes right in my driveway and goes right down to our building. And so we're very willing to help pay for a stoplight there. We're also willing to pay to get a crosswalk there, so that Grand Dunes and Edgewater and Shipwatch, everybody has a crosswalk to go across to that. And if you could get a traffic light at Ponciana and sync it with the traffic light up on where Chick-fil-A is, that would be an unbelievable help to the traffic. If you get a crosswalk so people have to stop to let the people in the crosswalk cross, then people will be able to pull out and turn, because that will also slow down traffic. So Edgewater's willing to pay to do anything we can. We're willing to hire Dean. We're willing to work with Chance. The only thing we're not willing to do is Greg Graham came to Edgewater and asked us to put in a pipe at Edgewater that all those other lakes would connect to my property. And when the water rose, one of my staff would go down and open it up, and it would go out. But we can't take on anybody else's water, and I couldn't trust myself to get up at night and open the dam, much less my staff who don't live there. So we can't do that, but we're willing to help put in anything. I'll work with the DEP, try to get an outflow put in. We've paid for pumps. They've paid for pumps. Water is a major problem, but we're willing to do anything to help solve that problem.
Thank you, Suzanne. I appreciate it.
Chairman, I have to recognize you for point of clarification.
Real quick, please.
I think if you look at the application and the staff report, I don't think it's a site-specific traffic study that's been done here. They've adopted previous studies. I don't think it's anything that deals with the safety issues of which parking exit or driveway, entranceway is more appropriate based upon the record.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak? Okay, we'll close public comments. Mr. Burgess, you want to answer a few questions?
Sure. We heard from a number of adjacent property owners. What I'd like to do is respond to, there were several themes that were presented rather than each person individually and repeat myself. So if the board would accept that, I'd be happy to take that. I'm going to take them out of order because I think one of the most concerning ones that we've heard is about stormwater, and I did not go through thoroughly our stormwater plan. This area is recognized by the county as an area of critical concern, which means Tetra Tech some years ago went around the county after we had that big duck drowner of 2013 and evaluated where the flooding areas are in Walton County. This area was identified, what they call the triangle there, where the two 98s come together. It does drain down to those two lakes that we've probably all seen come up across Scenic Gulf Drive. We recognize that, and we were mindful of that when we designed the project. The Land Development Code requires that we design to the 100-year storm. Our pre-development and post-development quantities, post-development can't exceed pre-development in the 100-year storm rather than the standard of 25-year storm everywhere else in the county. I can tell you that the development of this property will actually reduce the discharge of water in all storms, including the 100-year storm. We calculated just over 30 cubic feet per second being discharged from our property and the portion of the plaza that we're taking in the pre-development condition, and it will be roughly 10 cubic feet per second. So we were reducing the amount of water, the rate of water, by a third in the 100-year storm.
Can I ask you where that water's go?
It does. It will continue, down its natural flow path, which is toward those lakes. So our little 2.5 acre site cannot fix all of the problems, but I can say, since the county has implemented the stormwater criteria, we meet and exceed the requirements that the county has set forth. And we are willing, as I sat down with Suzanne, to work with Public Works toward a solution, a regional-wide solution to try to alleviate the problems, because frankly the hotel will be affected in these heavy rain events. They don't want to see the water in the road and places that it doesn't belong. I think some simple things that I threw out with in my discussion with Suzanne is along Scenic Gulf Drive, whenever they put in the multi-use path, and when Grand Dunes was doing their construction, and probably some of the construction that went on during Chick-fil-A, those swales did get filled in to some degree. Plus, just over time, they slough and get filled in with debris and sand and so forth. We can, the way I see to try to remedy the problem is try to catch it before it gets to the bottom of the hill. And we can put in better swales, introduce swale blocks, basically check dams that will catch that water and prevent it just from running down the hill.
But that's not on this property.
No, it's not. But there are some suggestions that I can sit down with Public Works and as well as see if Tetra Tech has offered some solutions.
The only answer to water problems is for everybody that lives in that whole area and owns property there to put their heads together and be willing to spend some money to find a solution.
Right. But my point is there are some simple
It's not any one property
solutions.
owner's problem. It's everybody's problem that needs to find a solution to it.
That's correct.
And the problem I think that I've seen in, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years, whatever I've been on this planning commission, is we make recommendations often. And I don't know that I've ever seen one actually followed through as far as from the county commissioners forward. We don't approve anything. We make recommendations.
Right.
That's all we can do. The county needs to take that water issue seriously and be the person who puts together a plan to resolve it, hopefully with everybody contributing to that plan.
Right.
That's just Teddy Stewart's thoughts.
We put some thought into it and actually have some suggestions was the long story short.
Where are you taking the water that you're not discharged? What you're doing? What are you doing with that on the site? Where is it going?
I'd be happy to go over our drainage plan. We have a large exfiltration system that is basically under nearly all of our parking area, as well as an open retention area in the center of the property. Exfiltration, though it's costly and expensive, an advantage that I'd like to point out is that it distributes the water evenly, especially when it's laid out like this, where it's under nearly all of the parking areas. It spreads the water out instead of concentrating it in a dedicated retention area and potentially creating mounding. Our objective here was to distribute the water across the site as evenly as possible, and I think it will be successful in reducing the discharge from the site to the extent that we can on our 2.5 acres.
Okay.
Briefly, another topic that came up is traffic. We did, of course, complete a traffic concurrency analysis for the project. Something that I'd like to point out and that we discussed with the neighbors is actually a hotel is one of the lower trip generation uses that we could put on this property. We analyzed a if we were to continue the shopping center concept, we would generate roughly 3 times the traffic that this particular hotel does. There are some intersection improvements that are planned foreseen at Gulf Drive and 98. And I think those will help to alleviate some of those traffic issues. Again, unrelated to this project, but I'm just not aware that there are some intersection improvements that will help alleviate some of those concerns. Crosswalk. We did discuss a crosswalk in our meeting with the county, and basically what we agreed to do, because a crosswalk would benefit the hotel as well. We will work with Public Works, and if you want to put this in a motion, we'd be happy to accept it. We will locate a crosswalk where between myself and Public Works, where it is deemed to be best located. Doesn't necessarily have to be in front of our property. Probably the best location is around Point Siena at the intersection, so you don't have people trying to cross at a location other than where there's a bona fide intersection. But I can get together with Public Works on that, and I know they don't like to get too many crosswalks, and there is one already down by Shipwatch, so we'll take that into consideration. I think that covers the three main topics that were brought up. If there's any that the board had, I'd be happy to elaborate.
The big one, that how should that intersection or that driveway line up? What's the safest way for it to line up? In your
Safest alignment for an intersection is directly across center line to center line.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask for a point of clarification?
Sure, what is it?
From the developer, he mentioned a 100-year plan. Is it the developer's position, testimony for this commission, that a 100-year plan addresses sheeting and watershed? Because my understanding, it doesn't. And a 3-inch rain on that spot of ground produced 80,000 gallons of water that's sheeted or shedded. And it, no matter what drainage system you have.
Well, that's it. Dean, you answer that?
The rules require that we do not discharge a higher flow rate of water in the post-development condition than the pre-development condition. It does not preclude you from discharging water from the site. It just has to be at a lower rate or equal to what it did in the pre-development condition. So I'm not standing before this board saying that that no water will leave the site. It will leave at the rate that is allowed under the criteria that's set forth in the Comp Plan and Land Development Code and Northwest Florida Water Management District.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Chance? What is your position as far as safety on this alignment of the driveways?
It's my opinion that the safest alignment is directly adjacent to each other. Lined up, center line to center line. Yes, sir.
Where should you put the crosswalks?
I'd like to take some time to understand that and really look at the other uses and the traffic patterns of the pedestrians in the area before I determine where the best location for that crosswalk is.
Okay. Commissioners, any other questions? We're going to close public comments. I just want to clarify one thing real quick. I didn't mean to say a minute ago that the county don't do nothing. I think they certainly do. I think the county is limited as to what they can do in a lot of ways. And I think it would be incumbent upon us to recommend to the county commissioners that a concerted effort be made to get all interested parties together in that area to try to work together to come up with some type of solution. Not to say we're going to meet next year, not to say we're going to work on this for the next 3 years, but to sit down and try to figure it out. And it's not going to be a cheap thing to do. But I think there's enough interested parties that funding could be found to make something happen. Because while property owners have a right to develop, we do have to be concerned with how that development affects other people. So I think it's a bigger issue than we can certainly address. We can certainly make recommendations to the county commissioners that they need to work on it. I did not mean, like I said, I didn't mean to say that MAC or anybody else hasn't done their job. They do a tremendous job with what they're given. It's just sometimes that you know, a little bit more, I guess, impetus needs to be given to them to get something done. So, and that's all. Commissioners, what's your pleasure?
I make a motion that we approve with qualifications. One, that intersection be center line. Two, that we strongly encourage or recommend, or however you want to phrase it, that the neighboring parties, including the homeowners at Shipwatch, I don't care that they're 4 feet away, but that all those, the Grand Dunes, Edgewater, and those gentlemen, that all those be included to meet with the developer and try to come up with some method or of alleviating the stormwater, alleviating the pedestrian traffic, and to strongly encourage a stoplight or a traffic light be put in at Poinciana. And then include any other qualifications that the planning staff already have. That's the motion.
Do we have a motion? Do we have a second?
I wanted him to repeat it.
Yeah, I don't. Well, I guess my concern with the motion is just that, are you going to require this developer and this applicant to fix all of those things before they can move forward?
No,
because I don't think that's the intent.
No, that, let me make sure we understand each other. That because they're neighbors, they're in the Mr. Burgess's group are neighbors in the neighborhood as well as the other people who are already there. So that we recommend that they get together as a group of neighbors, the Shipwatch people, Grand Dunes, Edgewater, and the Hilton people get together to formulate a plan to help all of them, and that they work with the county engineering staff to do that.
I guess my question,
it's a recommendation.
My question though is that's not a condition of approval.
No, it's not. It's a recommendation.
Okay.
The condition of approval would be that those driveways are aligned.
And the possible crosswalk.
And that we ask the county staff to look at a possible crosswalk and traffic light.
Karen, you got all that? You sure?
If you ask me to repeat it one more time, I may fall out.
Everybody understand what the motion is? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Oh, we ain't got a second.
We don't have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second. My bad,
Now
I'm
we'll
sorry.
vote.
Now we can vote.
There's not any more questions.
You're the man. Any other comments? Thank you, sir. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Let's take about a 10-minute break. Table number 6.
Oh, boy. We're going to do 6.
Karen, you ready? Where's Matt?
Where's Lee?
Sure.
Oh, there's Lee.
Okay.
What is that? Just by reputation.
Yeah, them things will hurt.
We're going to call the meeting back to order. And I think the next item up is item number 6.
Mr. Chair, this is a major development order application submitted by Gary Shipman on behalf of Joe Bruner requesting approval to develop 25-lot single-family subdivision. The project is located on the east side of Thompson Road between Palmer and Golf Club Drive, abutting the west side of Anchors Lake Drive on 8.29 plus or minus acres with a future land use of low-density residential. all the outstanding comments have been addressed. There's no violation. It is an incongruency, so there would be a proportionate fair share amount of $35,220. Like I said, all the other comments have been addressed. Mr. Chair, in your handouts, you have a packet for Ocean Estates. It's an agreement between the applicant and some of the homeowners. You'll notice there's also one that says that they don't support it, so you have kind of one of each. However, I'd like to direct you, if you haven't already read the county attorney's office's opinion on this. We recommend that this does not be put into the final order as conditions, because we cannot enforce conditions that are more restrictive than the adopted land development code and comprehensive plan. So we could not support that going into the final orders. So I presented it as an informational item to you. The applicant and neighborhood could do this at their covenants that could make it restrictive. There's items in that aren't even lawful for us to enforce, and the county attorney's office just feels it would be a very slippery slope for the commissioners to enter in this agreement in the final order. However, the agent and the affected neighborhood could do this in their covenant.
You're talking about mostly on the architectural conditions?
That it's throughout the whole, it's that whole document.
Well, I don't like slippery slopes, so we'll try to leave this, let them work it out between themselves.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
So if there's no questions, I would like to enter this into record.
Accepted.
Are there any questions for me? I will turn it over to the applicant.
Mr. Chair, if I could make a clarification, the county supports the things that are in this agreement. It's just our concern that the final order may not be the appropriate place to enshrine those.
Right.
All right. With Gary Shipman on behalf of the applicant, I do disagree with one position that I guess taken by the county attorney. I believe that we can enter into a developer agreement that becomes part of the development order that imposes these conditions that are in the letter that we've agreed to with 80% of the owners out there in that community, and it does become enforceable. And we would request that if this commission was inclined to vote to approve our proposed plan, that the motion include that we enter a development, and I'm representing the developer, that we enter a development agreement, and we enter a developer agreement that incorporates everything in this letter, and that becomes an attachment to the proposed development or recommended development order that imposes these conditions. It's been done in the past, and we just kind of by way of history, we came before y'all last July to have a change in land use designation. It was residential preservation, and we changed it to residential infill, and y'all recommended it. But there was a lot of concern about what the development would be, because under residential infill, it has a maximum of 4 units per acre, and so you could conceivably, I guess, come up with something that was 33 units. And then we went before the board, county commissioners, and the same issue came up. And we were saying, look, we don't want to do that. And it was suggested by the county commission that we get with the owners out there, and we did, and we had a series of meetings, and we come to an agreement on what the development would be that everyone could live with. Now, not everyone, to be honest. I've never been able to get a group the size of 25, it's virtually impossible to get everyone to agree to everything, but 80% of the lots out there signed this. And we want to make it clear that the developer is going to live with this. So that's why we would ask that if you're inclined to vote on this, that we have, as part of the motion, that this be turned into a developer agreement and be made part of the development order, and that we be required to live with this.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
Could we get this squared away right now? But I'm not an attorney. Y'all help us
We
out.
can
here.
make a recommendation, but it's ultimately it's up to the BCC to.
Y'all are you're in agreement with everything here.
Yes, sir. This was part of the negotiation between the developer and the community.
Is that all right with you? That maybe we're putting the cart before the horse, but
If we get to that point.
if we get to that point, could that be part of some sort of motion?
This is a little bit different than the way things were presented to me. It'd be nice to have this conversation a little bit in advance of this meeting, but I'm not opposed to a development agreement that may incorporate some of those items. That's something that I'd have to look at on an individual basis. There are some things that I just simply had a concern with being as a part of a final development order.
We can certainly make a recommendation to incorporate it and let the BCC make the ultimate decision.
Especially since he's agreeing. I mean,
Yeah, he's agreeing.
Yeah. And that was my understanding, that there was some agreement by the
Yeah.
developer, but I was understanding that it was a little bit more pushed by one of the neighboring communities. So if there's an agreement from
Let's
the
see if we get
developer, we
there.
can look at that.
Let's get there first.
And as I said, there are 25 lots that would be in a community adjoining, or 25 homes. This is a 25 lot development we're doing.
Right.
20 of the 25 owners
Right.
have signed this.
Okay.
And I'm saying because I'm making clear, it's on the record. The developer has committed to this. And we don't mind having it as a developer agreement attached to the development order.
Okay.
Or even having something like on the things that we're talking about, deed restrictions, that we have to record covenants and conditions that say this.
Okay.
Just briefly, because I know y'all probably feel like I do, and after listening to the last matter, would just assume this be short and quick. The few things that are changing, and I have an engineer here asking any technical questions, but right now there's a cul-de-sac right here that comes off Anchorage Drive. It's this way. We agreed it would have significant expense to the developer, by the way, to reverse that and have it come off Thompson Road and plant vegetation. So there's a buffer between the adjacent community and this community. We've reduced the number of lots, and as I said, with residential infill, it'd be a maximum of 33. We're asking for 25. The developers also agreed to address some, and correct me, Robert, if I'm wrong, on Palmer's Court, there's some drainage issues that we're going to fix as part of our development, but then the drainage right now impacts the adjacent community. So a lot of work and a lot of effort went into this to create a development and a deal that was palatable to everybody, both the developer and the community around it. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
If I recall from the last meeting on the land use change, probably the biggest concern, other than just the number of lots, was traffic going into that neighborhood.
And by doing
and by doing what you've done here, it looks like you've completely addressed that.
Yeah, well, by doing that, we significantly reduced the number of houses that would actually drive on Anchorage Drive. In fact, there's not any houses.
There's none on there.
They come directly off Anchorage Drive, it would off Palmer Lane and Golf Drive, there's 5 houses. But, so there's very minimal impact on Anchorage Drive from this development. There's no real reason for anybody to drive on that road.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for the applicant?
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I'm going to open up public comments. We're going to go through the stack here. Anthony Montero.
Name's Anthony Montero, spelled Montero. So he's absolutely right. 80% of the people agreed to this plan. I am the 20% who did not. That's my house. It sits on the corner of Golf Club Drive, in which the 5 homes that will be directly across the street. Here's my house. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 homes will be directly across the street, impacting my traffic, my home, my value. So I'm gonna go to here. If you can see on this map, all the people who signed the petition are not the red X's. They are completely not impacted. So if I was not impacted, I would not sign it either. The guy all the way at the end is a quarter of a mile away. It's not going to impact him at all. It's going to impact my house, my property value. So my wife and I looked at this and said, a whole group of neighbors got together and they got with the developer, and the developer was reasonable for their requests. They weren't reasonable for my requests. They didn't do anything to address the impact that's going to have on that one house. So you got 1 house to 5. Right now I have 0 houses to 1. So I don't have a neighbor to the north, west, east, or south at this particular time. Golf Club Drive has about 10 traffic trips a day. It's going to go to about 45 if you put 5 houses there. So multiplying about 400 times the traffic on that one little tiny road. It's a little windy road. So what I did, that's what it would look like. My house is the red outline. And you can see the compatibility is an issue here. Look at the size of my lot. That is equal to the size of 3 of their proposed lots, plus 2 of their other lots. So it's 5 lots equal to 1 lot when you look at the overall picture of this, right? The folks up on Anchorage Drive have 0 impact on this, right? There's going to be no traffic going there. All of the traffic is going to go through Golf Club Drive in front of my house with my 3-year-old child, and all of that traffic is going to run up and down that road. So what I did is I said, let's try to minimize that a little bit. So if you just extend Golf Club Drive, what it does is it removes the impact of 3 of the 5 homes that I'm going to experience here. It's gonna also kind of even out their symmetry of how their plan is. So it's just going to take those houses that are going around the corner and put them stacked up because they have them all lined up, and then you'll have another access coming off of Thompson Road, which will hopefully alleviate the coming around the corner in front of the house and around the house. And you can see by the landscaping of this house, that's going to have to be impacted by the houses that they're going to build directly across the street from me. There's no way you can put 5 houses equal to 1 house across the street and match that. It's just impossible. I don't care how good your architect is. I don't care how good your landscapers are. It's just not a fair 1-to-1 for us. So I also came up with potentially another option, which would be move the 4 houses facing out to Thompson Road. The precedent's already been set there because there's 13 homes already on Thompson Road that have access to driveways off of Thompson Road. So there's another option. All I'm presenting here is that there was work done to appease 21 other folks in this neighborhood and 0 work done to appease the one guy who's impacted the most. Any of those other houses, had they did not reverse that cul-de-sac, would have been minimally impacted in the first place. The one home that is highly impacted, there's been no consideration at all. So my final question is, does this developer have more rights than the homeowner? That's a question that you guys have to answer. Are their rights to build 5 homes across from my 1 home more important to this board than it is to us? Now, if the answer is no, they're equal. which I think they should be. Because we bought that home when it was 3 lots, right? So I made a major investment in my family and my future to buy a home that I knew would only have 3 potential homes in the future. We came in front of this board several weeks ago, and you guys said, no, they can build up to 30 lots. Okay, we lost that battle. So now they came forward with a plan that says we're going to do 25 lots, we'll flip a cul-de-sac around, but we're not going to address anything on the Golf Club Drive side. And that one guy over there, he's going to take the full brunt of this entire neighborhood. Traffic, noise, property value decreasing. So the question is, if you think it's even, that that developer has the same rights as I do and my family, then I think you need to say, take a look at the Golf Club Drive configuration, either extend that road or flip those houses to alleviate the impact on what we're going to experience.
Thank you. Is that Judge? I think it's Judge Barry Fitzsimmons.
Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Brady Fitzsimmons, and at this time, what I would like to do is get your permission to yield my 3 minutes to Mr. Robert Bratkowski. And I think that Mr. Bratkowski can present my argument rather than you having to hear multiple repetitions. Thank you.
Appreciate that, sir. Thank you.
Is it granted? And is it granted?
Yes.
Thank you.
If at all possible, I would like to yield to Mr. Stephen, we want him to be the first person to speak on our behalf.
Are you yielding, or you just saying you want him to go first?
I just want to switch the order. He would just like the meeting.
Who do you want to go first?
Mr. Stephen Holmes.
Got it.
Thank you.
Is it time?
Yes, sir. By my calculations, you now have about 1.5 minutes.
I'm running. So I'm Stephen Holmes, Holmes, and I've been sworn in. So I live in Country Club Hills at 40 Acres Lake Drive South. On behalf of 20 of the 26 homeowners in Country Club Hills, I request that you, as the Planning Commission, conditionally recommend that the BCC approve the Ocean Estates Development Order and that the BCC incorporate all 9 of our conditions into that development order. These conditions are listed in our January 13th email to the BCC, and you have that in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
This would be a conditional recommendation by you to the BCC. Regarding that email, it is signed by fully 20 of the 26 homeowners in Country Club Hills. Tonight, I'm speaking for all of those 20 owners. Importantly, the developer himself has agreed to the 9 conditions in that email, as has already been stated. I did not have enough time to discuss each of the 9 conditions. However, I will briefly focus on condition number 9, binding terms, as listed in that email. We must make sure that our negotiated agreements are placed into the official records and into the development order so that Ocean Estates cannot be later changed by the current or subsequent owners of Ocean Estates lots. This is of paramount importance to us. If you cannot support all of our negotiated 9 conditions, then we cannot support the current Ocean Estates proposal. However, if you do support the 9 conditions, then we definitely do support the current Ocean Estates proposal and conditions. This is what we want. Here's a little background to our request. Country Club Hills is a well-established, fully developed, upscale subdivision consisting of 26 half-acre lots near Anchors Lake and the Santa Rosa Golf and Beach Club. Importantly, Country Club Hills is the neighborhood that is immediately adjacent to the proposed 8-acre Ocean Estates subdivision. Unavoidably, Ocean Estates will have a big impact on our neighborhood, for better or worse. Back on August 8th, last year, the BCC changed the Ocean Estates zoning to allow for 1 to 4 dwellings per acre, or a total of 8 to 33 dwellings. 8 to 33 is a wide and debatable range. Allowing more than 16 dwellings would result in a higher density than at Country Club Hills, which is half-acre. The BCC also very clearly and strongly suggested to both the developer of Ocean Estates and to Country Club Hills that we work it out regarding the ultimate density and design of Ocean Estates before proposing a specific development order. We have worked it out. That's why you have our conditional letter of support in front of you. Both the developer and 20 Country Club Hills homeowners ask for your support tonight with a conditional recommendation to approve the development order if it is modified to include our negotiated 9 conditions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Catherine Fitzsimmons.
Good evening. My name is Catherine Fitzsimmons, Fitzsimmons, and I am sworn in. My husband Brady and I built our home at 87 Anchors Lake Drive South in 2010. My mother, Virginia Jackson, built her home in 2015 at 89 Anchors Lake South. I specifically wanted to address 1 and 2 of our conditions very briefly.
Can everybody back there hear her?
Yes. Okay. 9 homes will predominantly use Palmer, and 6 homes are going to use Golf Club Drive, as it appears here, with 10 homes being accessed from Thompson Road. These homes represent 40% of the development that would utilize a newly flipped Nicholas Court cul-de-sac with direct access from Thompson Road and no access from Anchors Lake Drive North. This greatly reduces the additional traffic burden on Anchors Lake and Country Club Hills and is a major benefit to us. In the event the Commission does not support these 2 items in conjunction with the other 7, Country Club Hills would fully withdraw its conditional support of the Ocean Estates DO and would strongly oppose the development order. Mr. Bruner has agreed to these 9 conditions, and we think they are mutually beneficial. We have done as you requested, and as Mr. Shipman stated also, we have worked extensively with each other over the past year. We now ask for the BCC's agreement and support that all of these conditions, and as this seems to have morphed, be part of this development order or whatever form it needs to take and be binding. I think that's an operative word here. Your formal endorsement is an integral and imperative part of our conditional support. Thank you.
Thank you. Christine Thompson.
Christine Thompson, THOMPSON. I live at 30 Anchors Lake Drive. I guess I'm really not going to read this thing because it basically just reiterates that we are, or I and my husband are, in support of the conditional agreement as long as it is binding. I mean, that's the key, because if another developer comes along, we don't want to, have them just be able to do whatever they want to do. But as long as there's some way to bind it to the land, however you want to put it, then we are in agreement with that.
Thank you, ma'am. Bob Bratkowski. I guess you didn't cede your time, huh?
I did. Name is Bob Bratkowski. It's spelled B-R-A-T-K-O-W-S-K-I, and I have been sworn in. This should take about 2 minutes and 48 seconds, so I think I timed it out. Obviously, my name is Bob Bratkowski. My wife Rebecca and I live in Country Club Hills at 232 North Anchors Lake Drive. This past April, we completed construction on our home on a property that we have owned and paid taxes on for the past 22 years. My parents, Zeke and Emmy Bratkowski, live next door at 224 North Anchors Lake Drive in a home they have lived in for over 25 years. As you know, Country Club Hills is immediately adjacent to the proposed Ocean Estates development. I would like to briefly touch on conditions 6, 7, and 8 of our conditional support to the Ocean Estates development order. Item 6 is drainage, which was brought up. The developer, at their expense, will add drains per plan to help relieve our current CCH drainage problem. Our concern is that the development will add to the existing problem due to decreased percolation on their property. Item 7, architectural, and this is very important. The following conditions address at least some sense of compatibility to CCH, and in turn our property values. 1, we would ask for one single family home per lot, no mobile homes. Each home must be constructed with a minimum of 2,500 square feet of heated and cooled space. No more than 2 stories, no vinyl siding. Each home must have a 2-car garage. This ties directly to condition number 8, which gets to parking. Item 8 is parking. No parking in the rights of way or on the grass, and no outside storage of watercraft, recreational vehicles, trailers, or commercial storage. A reminder to all of you is that anyone coming to any of our homes must pass right through Ocean Estates to get to us. There is no other way. In closing, our conditional support for this development is tied to all 9 conditions, with 9 being absolutely critical. Many of our neighbors have major trust issues with any developer doing the right thing for the long-term best interests of Country Club Hills. We must make sure that our agreements and conditions survive any future changes in ownership. Currently, with this conditional letter of support, which is acceptable to the developer, there is an alignment of interests. Let's make sure they survive the test of time. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Okay, we have nobody else who signed up to speak. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak? Yes, ma'am.
20 West, 2 South, 34. All 640 acres belong to me. Do you see all of this land?
Mm-hmm.
This is all mine through the railroad grant, which turned into a lease, which turned into corruption, which turned into all of the problems that we're having. So, anyways, you can't build anything on it at all. End of story. Thank you.
When was the railroad built through there?
This was from 1881. It wasn't built. That's right around the time that the deed. Well, okay, the deed isn't actually a deed. It's a tampered with survey of Washington County, because this land is Washington, the point of Washington County. So. In 1881, the Swamp Act was written, and then the Internal Improvements Trust Fund of the state of Florida had a debt to pay.
That's okay. I just wondered if there was a railroad down there.
There's not, because the U.S. Geological Service and Eisenhower, Douglas and Clay, the guys that built our interstate highways, decided that this land wasn't stable. I mean, that's why there's not a railroad on this land.
Thank you very much for that education.
Well, he asked me a question, and I'm really
appreciate
knowledgeable on it.
I appreciate
So, I thought I'd talk for as long as you possibly let me.
Thank you.
Oh, I will be continuing to explain how it is that I own this entire island at each and every meeting. So
Very
thank
good.
you very much.
We look forward to seeing you.
More to come.
Is there anybody else who wishes to speak? Seeing none, we'll close the public comments. Commissioners?
Just for the record, Mr. Shipman, you agree wholeheartedly, without reservation, to their 9?
Absolutely.
As far as the other gentleman's point, or his 2 options, do y'all entertain, or is those possible, or?
It's not possible. I have our engineer to explain it. I'm not an engineer. And I would like to point out, we negotiated for over 6 months, multitude of meetings. There were never any suggestions in any of these meetings about any other option, or we would have explained why it couldn't be done.
Okay. You mind?
Robert Carroll, Carroll. I'm with McNeil Carroll Engineering, 17800 Panama City Beach Parkway. I have been sworn in. First item was the traffic he talked about. If you want me to address that, or you want me to just
his 2 options, or if you could just why that's not a option for y'all. How about that?
And again, we've met, we've gone over these, we've been presented lots of options, lots of alternatives. This is the first that it's came up. So this was not presented to us before for us to examine. But as you see the green there, that's all preservation. So because it has more than 2 acres of existing vegetation, we have to preserve. So we got to do everything we can to preserve as much of it, and we're preserving more than what we need to preserve. But that kind of keeps the integrity of that neighborhood to keep as much vegetation and green space. So by adding another roadway to divert a handful of trips to get to Thompson Road, it satisfies one property owner, but it really just adds more asphalt, more runoff, and it creates, I think, more of a nuisance. So that was the main reason. We're trying to limit it. There was a cul-de-sac interior, so it was obviously designed that it was going to have all interior traffic. We've done everything we can to divert it. On that side, there's going to be 6 homes. We use the PM peak trips based on ITE. That's how you do all the traffic. Based on those 6 homes, you're generating about 8 PM peak trips. There's about minimum 11 houses within that area that currently utilize that. They're going to generate about 14 trips, so we're actually just over half of what's already there. So the 10 to 40 ratio, I don't know where that would come from.
So would it be fair to say that there's not enough bang for the buck?
No, sir. Correct. Did that answer it?
Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to know.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Anybody else? Any questions?
Well, I have a question for the county attorney on this one. What is the proper vehicle for making, in your opinion, those 9 conditions have the full force and effect? Because it seems like there's an agreement between the parties. Everybody wants this to happen, or at least the majority of the owners in that place want to happen. What is the vehicle, do you think?
I see a lot of those items as something that would normally be in a covenant condition or restriction of a neighborhood. Part of the concern that I have, and again, this was presented to me as that this letter itself would be attached as part of the development order, which is unusual. But part of the concern that I have for the county is who's going to be tasked with enforcing all of these 9 conditions that many of them are above and beyond what is required by the county's land development code.
Okay, so the county just doesn't want to be involved.
And I don't have the answer to all those questions, but that's part of the concern.
Maybe Gary can tell me.
Yeah, I think the main concern I think I'm hearing from her about does the county have the ability to enforce. We're talking about the items that would go into what amounts to a recorded declaration. I think, and I kind of agree with her, we can't staple the letter to the development order, but I think we can turn the items in the letter into a developer agreement. And on the items where you're talking about, like you got to have a 2-car garage and that sort of stuff, what you would do is you would attach that developer agreement, the declaration that we're going to record for this neighborhood, and basically or say in it that we will record a declaration that contains these items and make those items non-changeable.
So you almost have to have like a memorandum of understanding signed by everybody, and then do the DO, and then...
It's actually we've done developer agreements in the past. There was one, what was that parcel down on the Lavin parcel where, you know, we can put this sort of stuff in a developer agreement. She's correct that I think like where we say you can't have vinyl siding, what we have to say is that as a condition to do the development, we have to record a declaration that prohibits that kind of stuff.
And would, you correct me if I'm wrong, but would some of these like be deed restrictions?
Well, that would be the declaration that you would record in the public records. But a lot of it, like reversing the road and the 25 lots and correcting the drainage, that's not really that unusual for a developer agreement. And I think we could do that, and it would be binding. I think, I've stood up here and said we would do it. I think if we didn't do it and somebody sued, we've represented
Well, I move we
we're going to
approve
do it.
subject to that.
Sorry?
Do what?
Yeah.
I move that we approve subject to that developer agreement.
Yeah.
Second. Yeah.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. If y'all would, please take your conversations outside.
Yeah, no, the guy in the blue shirt that spoke to us.
I didn't catch who seconded it.
No, they don't.
Did you hear who seconded it?
Was it Danny or John? John made the
My
motion,
motion.
Danny seconded.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Heard a voice.
Hey, Ted. Receivers coach for the Tennessee Titans. Tennessee Titans.
Really?
His daddy was a
15-year
quarterback. Zeke, yeah.
I thought that's who, I saw the name on there. I said, I wonder if that's who that is.
He was a coach at Auburn for just not that long. But
Really?
So was Heisman.
He's a wide receivers coach.
You know.
For the Titans.
Yeah.
You never know who you're going to see, right?
Where was he, where did he play from?
Go
ahead, Mac.
Mr. Chairman, we ready to proceed?
Yes, sir.
This brings us to item number 7 on our agenda, the Forest View Village Office Complex. This is requested approved by final order. It's been reviewed by Tim Brown. I'll ask him to introduce this project.
Good evening, Tim Brown with Planning and Development. This is a major development order application submitted by Interlight Engineering requesting approval to construct an 18,000 square feet general commercial office building on 1.2 acres within the Forest View Village PUD with a future land use of general commercial. Project's located on the north side of Highway 98, west of Serenoa Road and east of Heyman Avenue. It's actually on MC Davis Drive. This was approved by the TRC at their November 1st meeting. It went to the Design Review Board and was approved 5-0 at their January 4th meeting with 5 conditions. 3 of those conditions concern deviations. Those 3 deviations were approved at their meeting last Thursday, February 1st. The PUD has vested traffic, so there is no proportionate fair share with this particular development. The conditions of approval are related to fire code, fire access. I would like to enter my staff report into the record, and I'll entertain any questions the board may have.
It's accepted, Commissioners. All right.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commission. My name is David Smith. It's SMITH, and I have been sworn in. And I'm with Interlight Engineering Corporation. And in the essence of time, I'll be brief. But Forest View was originally approved back in 2005 and has been amended in 2015 and was just recently amended earlier this year. We came before this board in December of last year. And this is a phase of the approved PUD. And this is the PUD master plan. And we're developing in this area here. And what we're proposing is an 18,000 square foot office building. So we are developing consistent with the approved PUD. And this is MC Davis Boulevard for reference. This is the school, the center construction, sports parks up to the north. And the office building is here. So we are proposing a new small roadway here with a parking lot that surrounds the building. And we have exfiltration with a combination of a dry retention pond over in this area. So again, I'll be brief, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you all may have.
You don't have any issues with these comments from the fire district, right?
We don't. We have to meet the fire comments.
Seems like a good development.
What's, any idea, kind of the model tenant for that sort of unit? Is it offices, or is it retail, or?
It could be any type of commercial office, medical.
No real plan for it at this point, just kind of a commercial space?
Primary plan is medical office, but it could be any type of office facility.
Okay, great place for it.
Thank you.
Anybody else? You may get off easy.
No, thank you.
Okay, we have nobody signed up to speak on this. Is there anybody that would like to speak? How does I know that?
Okay, so all of 183 South 05 belongs to me. It's over in that no okay to use area. Also, the deederys on this are also bogus. Going back to a $100 deal with the Board of County Commissioners. This is where they went through the TIITF and the DEP and the FDOT. It's all part of this horrible fandangle that they've gotten us into. It's Timberland. It's supposed to be Timberland. It may, let me go up to the top here. No AGAC. Okay, so now if you look at this on the satellite, which of course y'all don't show anymore because you don't want people to see how many trees are gone, you cannot classify this as non-agricultural. Oh yeah, here we go. This is what they do. They go back behind the trees and cut everything down. And so you can't see it from the road, and then they build stuff. And then they'll come in and they'll cut those trees down like, ta-da, look at what we weren't supposed to do, but now it's done and you can't do anything about it.
So you're opposed?
All of these, all five, this whole area is corrupt. None of it's legit. There's no titles to any of it. It's all unqualified. And when it goes back to a $100 deal with the Walton County, I know it's not legit.
Thank you.
So,
I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
I might have to leave early.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to address this issue? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Commissioners, what's your pleasure?
Move we approve.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman, could I ask that the conditions be included that are in the staff report? There are two sets of conditions, one from the DRB and the following at the end of the staff report.
I amend my motion to approve with the conditions being met.
We have approval.
Tom seconded.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Item number 9.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Santa Roy Sand subdivision. This is a major development application submitted by Binkley Engineering requesting approval to develop 3 single-family lots on 0.63 acres with a land use of neighborhood infill. It's located at 86 Beachside Drive. This was approved by the TRC at their December 6th meeting. It's considered de minimis under the CMS, so there's no proportionate fair share. The conditions are related to permitting. That 4th condition should not be there, so it'll come out of the staff report. I don't know how it got in there, but it should not be there. I would like to enter my staff report into the record, and I'll entertain any questions you may have.
Commissioners? Staff report's accepted. Anybody have any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Ross Binkley. I'm the engineer of record for this project. It's a very simple project, subdividing one parcel into 3 single-family lots. We're not proposing any roads. Utilities are all services to the houses. I'm here to answer any technical questions you may have.
Commissioners, any questions for the applicant?
This is located behind the development that we approved, was it last month or month before last, where they were going to do the condo and then switched it to
Yes, sir.
to lots? Okay.
That's correct.
Okay.
Nothing else.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I apologize. I got my projects confused. That condition should be there. This is a 3 single-family lots, so there will be a recreation fee. We calculated in advance. It says there that it's subject to change, but under the 2017 tax rule, that's the estimated rec fee. I apologize. I got this confused with one of my projects.
Okay. Okay, we have nobody who signed up to speak. Does anybody wish to speak on this item? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. Commissioners, what's your pleasure?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion.
Second.
We have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. That's the last item, right, Mr. Carpenter?
Yes, sir.
We are adjourned.
Oh, thank God I can get out of this radioactive room.
Oh, she's microwaving some later.
She microwaved me good last time.
See how much fun this is?
I got microwave last
You don't
month.
get that much entertainment anyway.
You need to stop asking
No,
questions.
no.
Hey, I didn't think that was the first time. I am curious as to where the railroad was running though down there.
Hey,
You know what? I can't stop asking.
I can't believe you asked her that.
John, ready to go, boy. I'll tell you what, I don't think you
Hey, Lee, can I come to your office tomorrow?
Michael, welcome aboard.
Thanks, sir. I appreciate it. I'm going to be quiet always.
That's all right. You'll get around. You'll get comfortable.
Hey, yeah.
You know what, though? Thing is, no questions, bad questions.
All right.
It takes time to get comfortable, especially with this kind of stuff.
I've asked him dumb questions.
Whatever you ask. Any questions?